Hey everyone, Tim Schofield here from QBKing77.com. Today has been a crazy, exciting day. Both Samsung and HTC have unveiled their latest flagship devices at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Fortunately, I wasn't able to attend Mobile World Congress. Hopefully in the future I'll be there. But this is just a video talking about the S6 and the M9. I'm going to do a full Mobile World Congress recap because there's a lot more that did come out. I'll be sure to get that video out soon enough. But right now, let's talk about the two big things, S6 and the M9. Now, basically, this whole morning was filled with me just watching the two conferences. I just sat, they had them streaming on YouTube. I just watched both of them. I took notes throughout the whole thing. And basically, at the Samsung Galaxy Unpacked event was a little bit longer than HTC's event. However, they went into more detail on certain things, which caused it to be a little bit longer. Both of them unveiled new VR headsets. Like I said, I'll do a full Mobile World Congress thing. But right now, like I said, they just went a little bit more detail about the S6 and the Unpacked event, whereas with the M9, they didn't go into as much detail about the device. Now, I was pretty much tweeting throughout the whole thing as well, and I even got Samsung's official Twitter account to tweet at me. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, be sure to do so. I always post on there. Also, other various social media if you don't use Twitter. So follow me over there. Like I said, when these events happen, I just always post just random stuff. Okay, but let's get into it. So now both kind of conferences held designed to be a very big deal for both companies. Now what's interesting is since HTC thought design was a big deal, they kept the same design pretty much as the M8, whereas with the Galaxy S6, they kind of went with a newer design, especially with the Edge device, which I'll talk about in just a second. Okay, but anyways, with the Unpacked event, they unveiled two devices, not just one, the S6 and the S6 Edge. Now, they pointed out some key points to their unveiling in the Unpacked event. I'm going to talk about the S6 first. They talked design, best display, fastest processor, best camera, and also we have Knox as well. Now, the Galaxy S6 will come in three variants, 32GB, 64GB, and 128GB. I believe it'd probably be about a $50 difference. We don't know the exact price. My guess is the 32GB will go for about $650 without contract. And they have said the release is on April 10th. So April 10th, you can go ahead and go get your Galaxy S6. Now, it's also important to note one big thing. They do not have a micro SD card. Terrible. They say, hey, just buy the 128 gig and you won't have to buy a micro SD card. Yeah, but you're gonna have to spend a crazy amount more. Hopefully not, but most likely you're gonna spend a lot more for that internal storage, whereas I can just go buy 32GB micro SD card for a lot cheaper. Now, when we talk about the design with the S6 Edge, it's the first dual curved display device in the world, actually. The non-curved device looks kind of similar to an iPhone, actually. I've heard a lot of comparisons to the two, especially the bottom of the device. The bottom of the S6 just really looks very similar to an iPhone 6, and especially the speaker grill with those holes. It just looks so similar. Anyways, it's made of essentially glass and metal, two things. So they went with a whole new, no plastic, no faux leather, nothing like that. The front and back is both glass, Gorilla Glass 4, so hopefully it won't break. You might actually see a drop test from me. We'll see what happens. But anyways, and then you have metal as well. Now, Samsung actually poked fun at Apple and the iPhone. They said when they were talking about the metal, the strong metal, this stuff won't bend. So they just kind of poked a little bit of fun at Apple. Anyways, let's move on to something very important with the Galaxy S6, and that'd be software, especially with TouchWiz struggling behind and lagging behind, literally. And I quote, they have said, lag or stuttering is gone, and the devices are insanely responsive. So those are direct quotes from the conference that they held. And that's kind of promising if that holds true, if they actually made it so the hardware and the software integrated well and the software isn't super bloaty and it doesn't lag. That's going to be a huge plus for the S6. Now, with design of their software, they said they replaced icons with text to make it easier to decide what you were doing. They've got brighter colors, more material design overall with the Lollipop update. Now, a couple things that look pretty neat. Hopefully I can get pictures of them on the side of me. The lock screen had options to reply and do various things, call straight from the lock screen with those lock screen notifications. Also, one of the coolest things actually is you can assign up to 5 contacts a different glow color. And what I mean by that is you'll see to the side of me when maybe your S6 is upside down, it's going to light up a certain color and glow a certain color. So you can see that. Let's say my mother is red. So if it's glowing red, it's like, oh, I know my mom's calling, so I'm probably going to pick this up. Also, another pretty neat feature is, let's say, for example, I have the blue color set as my friend Joe, and Joe's calling me, and I see the blue glow. I can put my finger on the heart rate sensor, and it recognizes my finger, and then it's going to send an auto reply, an auto text message reply, actually, just ignoring the call and then sending a text message reply to him. Now let's talk about performance of the Galaxy S6. It has a 64-bit Exynos processor, so not a Qualcomm Snapdragon. They went with their own Samsung Exynos processors, and then it has 3 GB of DDR4 memory. So like I said with TouchWiz, hopefully they slim it down and they make that memory more efficient. Now another important statistic, of course, first thing you see is that screen. It's a 5.1-inch Quad HD display, so 1440p display. It's Super AMOLED and has 577 pixels per inch. So since it's only 5.1 inch as comparison to the Note 4, it has the most pixels per inch in accordance to a 5.1 inch display. Now that display is something to kind of take note. I'll talk about this when I get to the M9. Now Samsung actually focused a great deal on battery life, which was kind of promising. I'm really glad they did that because battery is so important to me in a smartphone. They said that 10 minutes of charge can get you up to 4 hours of use. I'm sure it's very light use. I'm sure it has battery saver mode on, but still, they say that it charges extremely quickly. It's supposed to charge like 50% faster than an iPhone, so very promising things in the charging rate. It also has wireless charging. It's WPC and PMA compatible, so of course it's going to support Qi, just kind of both standard, so it's going to be very universal with their wireless charging. Now the S6 and the S6 Edge have 2 separate batteries. I believe the S6 is a 2550 and the S6 Edge is a 2600. It might be flip-flopped, but it's pretty much 50 milliamp hours, so not too big of a deal, but they're essentially going to be about the same. Now they're both embedded, so no removable battery in the S6. Another big thing. So no micro SD card slot and no removable battery. 2 huge things. Now with the non-removable battery, it allows them to make the device a little bit thinner. It's 6.8 millimeters thin. They also talked about how they expect battery life to be good enough, whereas you don't need to remove the battery and put in another one. If that's true, if the battery life is good enough, I'm totally okay with the non-removable battery. However, the micro SD card thing is just something I can't let go. Now on the back, you have a 16 megapixel rear camera and a 5 megapixel camera on the front. With the rear camera, you have optical image stabilization, important to note, and also something called real-time HDR, which will just kind of essentially allow HDR mode to be quicker when you take pictures. Now you can double tap the home button to get to the camera quickly, and it's supposed to open in less than a second, which is great because Samsung has had issues with opening the camera. They made a point to say, hey, opening the camera actually is quick now. Now one thing that kind of worries me is before on Samsung devices, if you double tap the home button, it opened up S Voice, and you could shut that off. However, if you had it on, it kind of caused the home button to be a little bit laggy because it was waiting for that second tap if you double tapped it. Now I don't know if it's going to be the same with the camera, but I'm really hoping that if you have it activated, the home button's exactly responsive and how you need it to be. Now finally, 2 last things. First of all, it has a fingerprint scanner in the home button where you don't have to swipe your thumb down anymore. Just like the iPhone, you can just set it right on the home button. If it works as well as the iPhone does, I'm going to be very happy. As you saw my iPhone challenge, I really like that thumbprint scanner on the iPhone. And then finally, with the S6, they announced Samsung Pay, which is a new payment platform. And what's so awesome about it, and it's something that I felt was needed for it to become a big deal and something everyone's probably going to use, is something that they allowed it to be through NFC, which is what Apple Pay does. However, they also made it so you can pay through standard magnetic strip readers for the credit cards. So you can just kind of put your phone up next to that magnetic strip card reader, which you pretty much use for your Visa, MasterCard, etc., and it's going to read your card, so you don't necessarily need to use an NFC payment system and an accepted place anywhere that accepts credit cards. Now, take for granted, if I'm at a restaurant or a bar, I'm not going to give the waitress my phone and be like, hey, go tap this up to your thing. But if you're at somewhere like McDonald's, a gas station, anything like that, it's going to be very easy to just quickly pay, even if they don't have that NFC payment set up. All right, so let's move on to talking about the HTC One M9, HTC's newest flagship device they announced at Mobile World Congress. Now, the first thing they actually said, and I quote, "Design is like nothing else, except for maybe the M8 and the M7. It's very similar to both of them. They didn't really make any changes, very big changes anyways. And a lot of people were pretty upset about it, actually. It's kind of disappointing. I would hope they had made some design improvements and not just kept some people really like the design, though, so don't get me wrong. Some people are going to be pleased. Some people were pretty upset, including myself. I wish they had made some design tweaks to make it look a little bit better. Now, when it comes to release time, they've said middle of March. They said it at the conference in Asia Pacific, India, and North America. Now, it's funny. Verizon actually already tweeted about it, and they said they won't get it till Q2, and they also have a very ugly branding on it. It has a big Verizon logo and pretty typical Verizon. Now, as for price, not official, but Best Buy leaked a page for the 32 gigabyte without contract as $650, so that's probably going to be pretty standard. And also, it has a micro SD card slot. So Samsung, oh, sorry, HTC included something you didn't, and that's a pretty big deal for some people. So we'll see if that SD card, micro SD card, is actually going to sway people to go HTC over Samsung. Now, talking about design, like I said, not too much different. Aluminum unibody, just completely uniform. It has all the buttons on one side, and there are updated boom sound speakers, so I'm pretty excited about those. I know how much you guys know how much I loved the M7 and M8 front-facing speakers. Front-facing speakers should be just a standard. That's something HTC's had over a lot of manufacturers now. Samsung still has it on the bottom of the device. I think it's a huge improvement just having those front-facing speakers. Now, software-wise, HTC is going to roll out Sense 7, which I talked about in my rumor video. They have Sense 6 right now. Sense 7 should come to the M8 as well. I would assume M7. And they didn't go into too much detail about the changes that it makes. It was kind of disappointing. They said it's going to know whether you're at home or at work and show relevant apps on your home screen. They also said there was a feature called suggested apps, and it's pretty funny because Apex Launcher did just about the same thing, and I'm feeling lucky app drawer thing, and people were really mad about it because it could promote spamming or paid promotion for apps, etc. So we'll see if you can shut that off. Hopefully you can. I know a lot of people didn't like it in the Apex launcher, and now it's in the Sense 7 home launcher. But overall, they did talk about there's a lot of customizations you can make with the app icons, the colors. You can even have a picture and it'll scan the picture and take all the colors and make your own theme out of it. It's kind of cool. So we'll see more once I get my hands on the device and I can get a review of both devices for you. Now let's go ahead and talk about performance. It comes with the Snapdragon 810 from Qualcomm, and it runs at 2 gigahertz. I actually thought it was going to run a little bit faster than that, so a little bit interesting that it only runs at 2 gigahertz. It has 3 gigabytes of RAM as well, which is pretty solid. It has a 5-inch display, and it's a 1080p display, which is another interesting point, actually, just because it's not 1440p, which is kind of seems to be the standard of flagship devices. I mean, the LG G3 was, the Note 4 was. Just the more recent phones are coming out with that 1440p display. So, I mean, the 1080p display is going to be fine for right now, but maybe in the future, it may not be as future-proof. Now, during HTC's presentation, they really didn't talk about the M9's battery very much. They didn't go into detail, not nearly as much as Samsung did. All I pretty much know is it has a 2,840 milliamp hour battery embedded, not removable. That's pretty much it. They didn't talk very much about battery advancements. Now, when it comes to camera, on the M7 and M8, camera was lacking. A lot of people know that. So they needed to make a big jump with the M9. They included a 20 megapixel camera. Now, megapixels don't necessarily correlate with picture quality. It'll be interesting to see how good it is, especially because it doesn't have optical image stabilization. I don't know why they didn't include it. It's very upsetting that they didn't have optical image stabilization on their camera. Now, one software feature in the gallery is that it has facial recognition software, it seems like, where if you wanted to see in your entire gallery more pictures of a certain person, you can go to their face and then it'll scan through all your photos and find all the pictures of that person. Now, finally, HTC talked about accessories. They're coming out with a second-generation dot view case. You can play games, customize notifications, have scrolling notifications. It'll be kind of interesting to see how well they implement the dot case into the phone itself. But anyways, that's it. That's just talking about the specs, giving my thoughts on the Galaxy S6 and the One M9. You gotta let me know what you think, guys. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Also, I have a poll going on over at my website, so go vote in that. If you're interested in buying one of these two, which one are you going to buy? That's essentially what it is. Whether you say the M9 is going to be better, S6 is going to be better. There's pros and cons to both. I talked about both of them. I tried to point out the main points, the main focus points. So, like I said, let me know what you think. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. All links in the description of the video below. If you want to subscribe to me, I'll get a full review on both devices pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.